All right, thank you. All right, welcome everybody to the Sherwood City Council work session, June 3rd, 2025. It is 5:20. And we've got a couple items on the agenda tonight. First one is our Old Town Strategic Plan update, and later on we'll be talking about Community Enhancement Program grants. So go ahead and turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, I have Jason and Ramin from First 40 Feet. They're going to give you a presentation, overview of where we are with the Old Town Strategic Action Plan, and a series of questions to help guide the plan as we enter the final few months before it is a draft and come for you. So with that.
Great, thank you. Apologies for being a little late. I was just over symposium drinking coffee, relaxing. So I got another 10 minutes or so. So thank you. Hopefully you're enjoying some food, and I know you have a lot on your plate. We have begun to develop this strategic action plan. I'm just going to kind of work through this just because of time. There's really three buckets that we're focused on. The first is this idea of sense of arrival, the fact that Old Town is off the beaten path, and there's some actions and considerations that could come into play to really help that relationship. So improve the visibility of Old Town to the drive-by traffic on 99. But at the same time, you've got this tremendous population that's surrounding Old Town within a 5-minute walk or a 5-minute bike ride. And there's opportunities to increase that access and bring those folks into Old Town. All that is going to, help secure and strengthen the growth of existing businesses and, and growth of Old Town over time. The other is thinking about business health and growth directly. And some of that has to do with the partnerships you already have with businesses in terms of events and programming. Is there opportunities to expand that? We want to look at that as some key actions for that. So events, branding Old Town, again, you have partnerships with the chamber and others, but what role can the city play in that? Attracting targeted businesses is another opportunity. There may be some actions to consider around that. We know towns like Tigard are doing some very aggressive things to bring in businesses. So there may be some considerations for us here in Sherwood. Identifying ways to incentivize development, either through development review processes. We're looking at a variety of different ways to engage that topic. We have a survey out to the businesses asking a number of questions about why'd you choose to be in Old Town? What are the conditions that kind of make or break running a business in the community? So we're learning a little bit about some of the issues they might have, and there may be some ways that the city can help support that effort. So we're trying to be holistic and strategic about a variety of different actions. And I think one of the biggest drivers for you all as decision makers is looking at what is the future for growth? Where will those things likely to occur? And what are some of the decisions we can make as part of the strategic action plan that can advance a few priorities within a 5-year time frame? So there's a whole ton of actions listed here, but there's probably a handful that actually can start moving forward within that 5-year time frame. And so that's what we're trying to winnow down closer to maybe what those key action items are. We'll give the laundry list, but let's create a timeline and some actions that are really focused on things that you as decision makers think are viable and you might want to pursue. So I'm going to walk through kind of a future scenario of growth in Old Town, and it's going to focus on two main corridors, Pine Street and Columbia. And so I'm just setting the stage for what you're about to see here in a moment. What we're going to do is engage some questions about, as decision makers, where might you see catalyst sites or redevelopment areas that you think you might want to focus on? Are there some key infrastructure projects that you might want to plan for and do some additional study, because that may help leverage development of catalyst sites? We'll talk a little bit about some of the regulatory changes that you might want to consider to make sure you get the right uses in the right places. And with that, I'll kind of jump into the study. This is just an aerial view of Old Town. Pine Street, we've kind of identified as a really important street. We'd call it kind of a signature street because that's your front door coming in from the north, and it's kind of the front door coming in from the south as well. It's a very identifiable street for most people coming to Old Town. And you have a variety of vacant and potential infill sites along that street. At the same time, you have a large redevelopment area that includes the PUD site on Columbia, another small parcel on the south side, and then the public works yard. So these are sort of future growth areas, thinking about expanding and filling in Old Town. Part of the conditions that we're concerned about is your redevelopment site around Public Works and the PUD site is fairly isolated. So the only way to get to it is that circuitous route around Lincoln and working your way into town. And so it's a great site, you can't get there. So infrastructure may be a tool to think about leveraging that site. So as we begin to think about the strategic action plan and where we might consider priorities, focusing our efforts, again, I'm trying to align us all to Pine Street, which you see here. The orange pink areas represent those catalyst or infill sites. And you'll notice they're sort of strategically located both at the beginning, the middle, and the end of Pine Street. And great streets in downtowns have edge-to-edge retail. They have activities or anchors on either end. You have a lot of characteristics of that. You have the art center on one end, which is a great draw. You have Cannery Square. In the middle is kind of the core of your old town, although there's, you know, a few holes in that. But that is really that solidified the core area where you see that letter C, the middle. And the beginning, I think, is an opportunity to create that moment off of Third and Pine that really creates that sense of arrival. Two key sites that really say, wow, you really come into Old Town. So we think those are important. And then as we think about Columbia Street, that again is our growth area, and we'll look at some opportunities to maybe make that more accessible for development. It's interesting, that letter H that you see there, that's where you have your retail commercial zone in that area. And it's really hard for retail commercial to work if you don't have a way to get to that use. And so I think a commitment to extending Columbia Street as a new connection could really open that site up as a really viable retail commercial site. Maybe looking at keeping the field house or maybe repurposing it. So I think the opportunities then expand as some of those infrastructure improvements are considered and maybe executed. Difficult lift for sure, and we'll look at some of the geometrics of that.
Can you go back to that map real quick?
Yes.
Put out the field house on there.
What is the new front door to the left of new?
Yeah, the field, are you asking?
Okay, that's what I
what the
thought.
house is? Yeah.
What is the property underneath the tip of the arrow there? That's the firehouse? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Which,
Sorry, the fire
which,
station.
by the way, their long-term goal is to move back.
Yeah.
So
Seems to be key to opening up this plan.
There's a whole bunch of house of cards. So as we sort of come back to Pine Street and we think about maybe some of the potential infrastructure improvements that could kind of leverage those sites at Third and Pine, I've always been excited about the curbless street in Sherwood. It's actually something I've told multiple other cities when we've done rebuilding of main streets. And so it's kind of the DNA, part of the DNA of your downtown. That curbless street and those public amenity spaces like Cannery Square, Robin Hood Plaza, they're all anchored on this street. And so thinking about extending the curbless street from First to Third might be a consideration from the decision maker side here. I think that would begin to set the stage then for development around them. So it encapsulates that great beginning, middle, and end of the street. It extends out to a potential growth area, redevelopment area. The other is thinking about extending Columbia Street over to Oregon Street and bringing in, creating that new front door to Old Town. So we've been working with HHPR just to look purely at geometrics. Could you extend the street this way? So you see Columbia heading between the field house and the fire station, aligning with the intersection. We've looked at a few configurations. One which just basically extends Oregon Street to Columbia Street. So now you've got that easy straight shot in. You don't have to go over the tracks through the neighborhood and roundabout to First Avenue. We also looked at something even crazier, which is a roundabout on the rail line.
has it ever been done?
Yes, it's been done in 7 other cities, 3 of which were done in one city in Indiana. And we have videos to show you how it works. But of course, that's again, a huge leap. The interesting thing about that roundabout is you have so much population off of Sunset coming into Old Town and trying to connect to Langer and up to Alton Sherwood, where you have your commercial centers there. A roundabout here would allow that flow easily north-south along Lincoln. So from those neighborhoods, it also is great as you connect Oregon Street right into the Old Town. I mean, Columbia Street's going to be the new front door. It's Sherwood Boulevard and this Columbia Oregon Street. So I think there's a lot of advantages with the roundabout to help circulation, not only to Old Town, but to other commercial centers. Is it, you could be the first, but you were one of the first to do curbless streets, so I would say.
Well, I was just imagining people at ODOT's head exploding.
Oh, I'm hoping, we're gonna talk to them tomorrow, so I'm expecting like steam and all kinds of stuff.
For the roundabout one, the Oregon Street to Lincoln Street connection, is that then broken and you need to go through the roundabout? Get to Lincoln Street from Oregon? On that-
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that
yeah,
side?
yeah, so you would go in the roundabout to get to Lincoln, as you would to any of the other streets, yeah. Yeah, you would have to cross over the tracks at that over again. I think the good thing is, I haven't seen a train go down that track,
True.
so.
I've ever seen
It's
it.
a backup line.
Kind of like the,
Yeah, fix it.
I mean, I'm just,
It would too.
if it's an active line.
kind of like the
No.
new bridge. You have to go under the bridge twice to make a left-hand turn. So.
So there's positives and negatives. I'm glad we're talking about this. Another thing that we're interested in, and this is about kind of parking and access, is the pedestrian crossing at Washington Street. You have a great reserve of parking. You have this amazing art center on one side of the tracks. You got this awesome, amazing old town on the other. And they can see each other, but you can't quite get there.
Do you have like a contact that? The B&W has expressed interest, but they lease the line from S&P, I think, Southern Pacific. And then it's a brick wall.
Yeah. And we talked
That's
to.
the challenge with both of these significant transportation elements.
These are huge. These are like, yes, pushing a boulder up a vertical incline, but if you're able to pull some of these things off, I think the rewards are exponential. And you know, we talked to Jason Waters today just about this, and he's like, yeah, we have the letter from our previous engagement about that. But he said there's a change in leadership, and if you can pull in, you know, stronger political will and power behind that, you go up and you write a new letter and you build a new agreement about the crossing. Part of it is when if we look at the future of Sherwood, this has a really important impact on your future growth and accessing infrastructure you've already spent a lot of money on and making that work better. And to me, those are fair arguments when you're talking to a railroad or others who have control over the way you move through the community. So anyway, it's always to look at, hey, we could really benefit from this.
Big lifts, but it might, some of it might be possible, but now it might end up being choices. Like, they won't let you, maybe they might not let us do all of it,
Yeah.
but let us do some of it. So
Well,
that.
here's another thing. I was also thinking a rail trail along the rail line. This could connect. This could connect the
Lifts
creek
and then
trail to the multi-use trail on Oregon Street. Wow, what a great beeline connection. And you couch this as, this is creating access for maintenance vehicles who need to work on the track.
Yeah, I think we're
Do any
all-
number of things.
Yeah, we're all.
It could be
with that.
fire and safety and
I think we all individually have tried to go after the rail trail.
The rail trail.
So we would love to, but on this one though, I had a question.
yeah.
If they don't have to do any change to the tracks, is it that big of a?
Yes.
It's in the right of way.
Okay.
It's in the right way, yes, they control them right away, so, anyway, again, as we're asking for the moon, the stars,
Yeah,
you know,
go for
we're
it.
shooting rockets to Mars, whatever it is.
I think part of it too is they're so big, it's just, they don't want to take the time to talk to us about it.
Of course, and you don't go like, hey, we'd love this pedestrian crossing, you go in like, this is foundational to our growth strategy, and this is what our future looks like, and this is an important connection, so. And if they tell you to go fly a kite, then we'll go grab a kite out of my car and
Say, we're gonna sue for accident.
And I'm super excited about these things, and part of our leverage that we had when we did the other improvements and to railroad crossings and stuff 20 years ago was we replaced and upgraded their entire track
Yeah.
within the city limits. All of it's new.
Thanks to Sherwood.
That's a good use.
And they still don't use it, but that's how we got the Sunset Railroad crossing done and the other railroad crossings.
You've helped enhance their future legacy, and now you're asking for
Or,
a little bit to help your future legacy, so. Anyway,
they were great to deal with.
of course.
We're ready to check, yeah.
So some of the things we've heard from a variety of community events is asking the question about how important it is to redevelop vacant properties. And there's been quite a bit of support. We haven't talked to a ton of people, but just to know, we've been asking some of these questions to the community and the business association or the Main Street group. And so there's definitely, people love this town. They love these attributes, what attracts them to the old town, the walkability, the dining, the mix of uses in the old town, the types of uses they'd like to see, additional restaurants, places for family, more housing, shops, all these things are desirable.
Did you talk about hotels at all?
Not directly, but we did in our market study to look at, where some key sites are. I know you've done our hotel study before. I think there's two potential locations that look good. I think the proximity where Old Town sits in terms of access and visibility make it difficult, but boutique hotels do happen in a lot of different places, so we can maybe talk about a site. We're gonna go through this exercise of looking at the future, and it may shock some. I can tell you once I get your first reaction, I'll share with you some of the reactions we received from our PAC meeting and our Main Street meeting, but just as we're thinking about new buildings and new development coming in, we're wide-eyed and clear about your historic standards, the desire to sit and rest on that early American type building, and this is, one of your great buildings on Railroad Street. And so elements of a cornice line, of these vertical bays, of vertical oriented windows, of active ground floors, of cloth awnings, that create that pedestrian feel. We understand that. And so as we show you future buildings, we're trying to take that into account. And so we may all be a little bit judgy about some of the buildings, but needless to say, we're trying to do our best. You're also going to see development that is generally within the height requirements. So we're not going 4 or 5 stories above what's in your code. We're trying to match what in the Smockville district is required by your standards. And then the Cannery District, which is a little bit different, but also similar in terms of heights and scale and development. Through our market study, we have a sense of what type of products are likely viable in the community. So what you're going to see are sort of mixed use buildings that not only meet your code, that are likely feasible from a development perspective. Site B on the left, we did this as an exercise with Adam B, who was opening a bookstore. His family were interested in a mixed use building. And so we actually built a program around what they were envisioning. So Adam B was looking for commercial on the ground floor, and his mom wanted some revenue generating apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And so we modeled a building based on kind of their program, and then we inserted on the site. Across the street in the old elementary school, we're looking at more as just as a mixed use site. And so given what we learned from our market study, we're gonna take a look here at what future development might look like. So within code, 3-story building there on what was site B, ground floor commercial facing Pine Street and facing 3rd Street. So those residences above. I think some of the considerations for developers is the ability for parking, and in Smockville, no ground floor parking is allowed. Only commercial or residential, which means if you were to do any parking at all, you'd have to go underground. So, the cost of doing that will be difficult. In this one, we had 4 parking spaces along the back side of the building in this program, even though that would not meet code, but it could be a consideration if you're able to get some type of variance, for instance. The building on the other side, we actually do have some parking along the back side of this building. So there is a drive aisle along the back side that would park out those units above. The commercial units, no, there's no parking for those. It's soon that would be on the street. But the idea is, what would be the right type, or what would be beneficial uses to Old Town? So ground floor commercial, continuing to have that in your beginning, middle, and end of Pine Street is really important. So we see the importance of, especially properties that you control, making sure that ground floor commercial is a component of that development. I mentioned a little bit about the DNA of Pine Street, the curbless street, the amenities that you've created with Cannery Square, Robin Hood Plaza, and I think some type of public plaza or commons or courtyard space would be really important to continue that string of pearls up and down Pine Street, so that as this site's redeveloped, and if you still have control of the site and you want to leverage that with the developer, these are some key aspects of what you might want to ask for in future development. Yes, we love a mixed-use building. Yes, we think these public amenities are really important because this is the front door to our community. We've showed a car pod here because some of you all had talked about interest in that, and maybe this is a phased project where the first building is built. There's a car pod in the front, but maybe ultimately you build out the second phase of this development, creating that full complement to that site. This building you see on the right would require acquisition of the property adjacent to it. There's been previous discussion in the past about maybe merging those properties, and I think that obviously would create more opportunity if that were to happen. So when we presented this to some groups, we asked what, how does this feel in terms of scale and the types of uses? And one comment was, this looks like the death of Old Town. And so we were surprised, but not.
I have the complete opposite reaction.
Okay.
I loved it.
Especially on the first one. I don't love this one as much. But the first one, I love the idea of having an additional green space plaza on that end.
Mhm.
This again, but still having those cute little stores, and I love these stores and residential design better than the one that went up next to Symposium. Right, this is how, and so I think I'm with Doug on this, and I love it.
I mean, I think there's just gonna be those that can't get past the house looking, the old town house looking, and that.
I think it's scale, like that looks like, 100 feet long, and there are a few buildings that are almost that long, but it does feel a little foreign, and I can see, when you go from this to that.
Right, you can mess with facades, right, to make it look
Sure.
like it's four different buildings.
And that was some of the
Yeah.
conversations that we heard from that person in particular, so.
I think the challenge people have is. It's hard to see it when you see this next to one of the houses, right? You have to see the long term.
Mhm.
In all of those houses, or nearly all those houses in the Pine Corridor, I'm not talking all of them down, but in that key corridor, once they all get redeveloped. Then imagine what that all looks like, right? It's gonna look piecemeal for a couple decades.
Sure.
Right? But you have to kind of see the longer term view of it, I think.
I think everyone's agreed that having mixed use there, continuing to have ground floor commercial is really important to Pine Street. Bringing more residents into Old Town is also a good thing. So those are the commonalities that everyone agreed to.
Yeah, so
Aesthetics of the building is
imagining,
the other.
I'm imagining that, right? And imagine
Yeah.
you're standing there in that little plaza outside the food car pod. And you're looking down Pine Street all the way to the Arts
Yeah.
Center. And that whole side of that road has been redeveloped in a similar fashion, right? And it's just a storefront after storefront after store for 3 blocks, right?
It's like Washington Street, where it's just edge to edge.
And store twice long, yeah. Yeah, or for 23rd or something. There's cute stores, there's.
So we also spoke with the owners of Symposium, and they were interested in a mixed use scenario. So Ramin developed floor plan for that. So ground floor commercial and a couple stories of housing above. So again, this is within your height threshold.
There's a courtyard in there.
Build out. Yeah, this idea has an atrium which allows light into the center core. Ramin had this idea of having in the interior restaurant on the ground floor so you could eat out into that. But I mean, this is all fantasy, but.
I guess if you build that out, it hides that building a little bit more. You build that out, you get on the other side to it.
It fits better.
Yeah, it fits in better. Yeah. Yeah, the scale. hides it.
So that's a question I have, because for the sites we don't control, Eric, was it 1537 last year that we're required, given variances on roof lines sometimes, so some of these.
Well, there's a whole lot of, right.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of this that.
Yeah.
We'll have to be able to control fully in terms of code and design code.
I think that's where you have to partner with the
Yes.
developers, right? You have to give and take. And-
For our property, yeah. it's conditions.
But I mean, even with these other properties, you're gonna be like, okay, yeah, you can enact 1537 and do it your way, but if you do it our way, we can meet in the middle and you offer some carrots.
Or maybe there's some leveraging on your side, to get what you want. I mean, I think the Symposium owners, they want to do something that fits in Old Town. This is their success is really positioned on this great building.
I have debate, did they ever clean that corner lot? Craig, do you know?
Oh, was there contamination?
On that one, the one across, it wasn't the one across the street, that used to be the gas station, right?
Right.
Oh.
I don't know. Keith on that, on the site seat, I don't know, they cleaned that.
So there's also been a development proposal for the old gas station site.
Yeah.
You all maybe heard about that. I haven't seen the drawings yet, so it's all completely black box for me. But I know they were pushing for maybe a fourth level, and if it was just for residential use, but they were interested in doing commercial and residential.
We
No.
allowed 3 in 1537 times, yeah. They're sort of for, unless we change our code to 2.
Let's not go there yet. Let's look at the future.
You know, like anything, there, different projects need things to make them work and.
So these catalyst sites, as we can see, can create some change, some of which you have control over, others which you don't, but are great pieces to completing this puzzle of Pine Street. And as we work our way toward Columbia, Site D that you own, it's ready, people, for something to go there. Site G, which is your PUD site, so you put all the codes in place. It was part of the original cannery work, and so mixed use is set up there, and so mixed use residential could work, and you've got, I think your code is working well for that. It's just, what are the tools to incentivize development on that site, or D, or Pine and Third. So we'll come to that in a minute. So we looked then of what build out of this beginning, middle, or end of the street might be, thinking of that pad site is potentially being an extension of the art center. So that could be part of the programming that is an expansion of that as a semi-public facility, and or it could be a private use. I mean, it's up to you all to decide what direction you might want to go. That building on the backside, site E, that's actually zoned for high density residential. And I think one consideration for you all as decision makers is Cannery Square is such a vital and important amenity, and to have active commercial ground floor uses on all sides of that is really a way to strengthen that space.
Yep.
And so would there be some value in that office flex building, that site E, that becoming retail commercial zone versus high density residential? Just something to consider. We know the PUD site already allows for mixed use. The site F is high density residential, and I think that's well in character with the Cannery Row apartments that are already there. I think having retail and commercial doesn't have to be everywhere, but in the right places, it can perform really well. And I think around Cannery Square, that's a great opportunity to have that retail commercial on all sides. The side on the left is ground floor commercial with housing above, or it could be boutique hotel. As we were talking to our market analyst, he was interested in this site close to Cannery Square because you're within walking distance of the old town, you're at the Arts Center. We heard some other perspectives in that Cannery Square is kind of like our living room, and should there be strangers in a hotel next to that? Should it be multifamily? Should it be people living in Sherwood? And I think if Columbia Street were to be extended to Oregon Street, a hotel down at that other end near where the fire station is, a great beacon, great front door, good access to Langer and all the entertainment and commercial up there. Either way, those are both sites worth testing for a hotel.
When you get a picture of Charlie?
Did you see that?
Yeah.
There's a trolley. This one doesn't have the trail, and we're gonna extend that trail there too, so you're gonna see people biking, and then people are taking the trolley.
Yeah.
One of the things we've talked about with Lot D is replicating the original, it's some kind of format train station. It
Okay,
used to be in Sherwood, but doing it in such a way that we can have a shop in there, and maybe, I've always thought we need more like covered outdoor space, so a Saturday market can run a longer season.
sure.
Those types of things as well.
Well, and you've got that great sort of access way between that building and the brewery, and that's itself a little kind of public space that extends to the Art Center's front door. As we move down Columbia, so now we've kind of flipped around, we're looking north now, and Columbia Street's heading to the right. Cannery apartments are there. This is site G is your planned unit development site. Public Works is just outside of that. E is that high density. So this gives us a view of, as we think about that PUD site and extending those buildings then along Columbia, we think there's some important things in terms of managing the scale and length of these buildings. So you can see we've tried to break them up into smaller modules. We've looked at what the development yield would create with this type of building. And we're seeing numbers in terms of the amount of residential and certainly commercial, because there's not a ton, that would work well. And we've been talking to developers that we know who are interested in Sherwood. And so they've taken, back of the envelope look at this site as well. And so they're seeing viability in terms of being able to construct it and get a return on investment. So we're trying to show you things that might have legs, and so we're doing a little research to
With
further.
resident or commercial on the first floor, because we've had developers interested. But their proposal was a little tiny coffee shop on one corner and then the rest of it.
Yeah,
residential.
yeah, I think, those are those conversations you need to have in terms, I don't think just a single coffee shop would be maybe enough here,
That doesn't
but.
count as mixed use.
It does, but it may not have the threshold that you want.
I can see like, as you get down to those blue roof buildings, that just being straight residential.
Yeah.
Fine, but as you're closer and closer to Cannery Square, you need to have that first floor, like, yeah, or even these other residential only buildings that you have there on the site F is fine.
And if we're gonna keep the field house there, maybe remodel it, we'll need parking.
Yeah.
Which is really effective.
Yeah.
Right now, lack of parking.
Oh, yeah, this is already parking constrained, to add all this residential, it's gonna be a real problem.
So from a retail perspective, there's always threshold. There's only so much retail you can support in an old town. And there is a basic configuration of retail that works best. It's when you have retail on both sides of the street. It's within, about 1,200 feet long. This is an extension of what you already have on Pine Street. So I think, to your point, the Cannery residential building is already creating a gap where retail could go. And so I think the complement across the street would be residential, and focus your commercial toward Cannery Square, and maybe focus your commercial toward Oregon, that intersection that opened up. And so now as we shift our way further east, so Oregon Street's there on the top side, you can see a bit of the rail line there on the right. This is unfortunately the community garden there, but extending Columbia Street.
Yeah, we did find her.
Extending Columbia Street impacts fire station, as you all know. But does create that alignment then to connect to Langer and begin to create that front door. These sites then I think become much more viable for a variety of uses. We're showing on the left, maybe the field house isn't here, that could be like boutique, grocery, butcher shop kind of mixed thing, and you still have inline commercial storefront along Columbia. Primarily residential on the other side, but ground floor commercial would certainly be something I think you'd want in future development. And since you own that site, that would be a consideration you could consider. We heard a bit from others who said, the backside of this building needs some type of screening, or maybe needs to turn more toward the tracks because you're gonna be looking at the backside of the development. So yeah, I think some of those considerations be worth adding into any type of agreement you all might want to have with a developer. So we're sort of curious, not to put you on the spot, no one has to say, I like site A or B or D or whatever, but as we think about this action plan, and I come back to this idea of we're trying to look for these nuggets of a 5-year window of change, it would be great to know, like, yes, the art center site does feel like a priority for us, or maybe it's site A, or maybe it's the public works. In any case, it's a discussion right now, just to get a sense or sort of pulse of you all's decision makers.
I mean, to me, it's A and D, right? Like I said, D is shovel ready. Right, I think we have several good ideas, and then A, we made a run at a few years ago, maybe we make another run at it, but again, that's the key entry point into Old Town, like, we need to do something with it.
Other thought?
We own the
And
park.
we own,
We're getting the planning done for Columbia Street. And some of that engineering for that future date, when the fire department does move, then we're ready to go. And we should be building that relationship in terms of right of way and all that now. Right?
and the plan for the curbless streets along Pine, all that.
Yeah. Is there any chance the fire department wants to move to A?
We talked to them about it, it's not big enough.
Okay, all right.
Wouldn't be a great anchor.
No, no.
Be a good
I
beginning
know,
to the
but I
street.
don't want them to go, hey, our heart's set on that because it's central or whatever, and I'm like, oh, well.
No, I can't remember, they need,
We'll all pitch in and find them a better site.
Acre.
it was like a full acre more square.
Yeah.
Why are they so dead set on being in or near Old Town?
Proximity to get everywhere,
Just to-
same amount of time, kind of. They'll bill it.
I think they are.
They'd rather be
They would be like closer to 99.
Yeah, there's a radius that I saw a map where they just happened to be where the spot was, but.
You can also,
I've been-
maybe they
Somewhere on.
have updated their whatever plans based on the growth of King City.
Station for another day, but Renee, what did you just say? 'Cause I didn't.
Billet products,
Huh?
old billet products, building.
Oh.
That's another good one.
So I think if you're not able to get Columbia as a through street, that parcel A, I think H becomes tenuous. That's where you might want to consider replacing your retail commercial zone with all high density residential, just and be able to solidify that. It's a great neighborhood and anchor to the Columbia Street.
So my feeling, I agree with the A and D being the easiest. On the H and G, is it worth going to a fourth floor if we can get commercial on the bottom, or you're saying that we won't have enough residential to be able to support that?
I think a developer would be excited to do potentially 4th floor and add residential units. You could, yes, and it does already allow that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We-
Very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause it's like, part of me, what I love about that is, yes, there'll be smaller stores, but if you have all of that be walkable and you get the other path down the railroad and you have the path crossing, it really does feel like you could walk that L on a Saturday and it's just a fantastic, or Friday evening. I mean, it does seem like a destination there, especially if, even if you're window shopping,
Yeah.
you've got the square. I would say you definitely have to have the commercial next to that. I mean, I see, when we go there, it's like, okay, well, now we've got to grab something. We either have to bring it with us to get some food there, or, there's not really kid friendly eating in that anyway. So those are my thoughts on it, but I think you're going the right
Yeah.
direction. I love how it looks.
And as far as Columbia Street goes, I think plan for it,
Mhm.
because, but that's gonna take a long, long time.
Yeah.
But if you don't
Yeah.
have the plan in place, it'll never happen.
And it's really, can you put enough money together to do the additional study to have the coordination and conversation with ODOT and be
Yeah.
able to see if that's feasible or not?
And so the other question for the Erics, I guess, is, sorry,
Yeah.
can we, if we have this out, does this attract people that we can then pitch and say, hey, developers? I mean, is that part of the outcome of this? Because it seems like this is millions and millions of dollars that we don't have.
Does the planning document help? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like all of the, okay, okay. Okay,
If someone's wanting to invest in G and they see the public works might be leaving, a potential road going through, even if it doesn't connect into this roundabout and connects to Lincoln, which we've talked to Jason Waters, who thinks is more feasible, then I think you're now opening the door and leveraging potential development. We talked a bit about Pine Street, curbless to that extent, maybe underground and utilities could be more complicated. We talked to PGE today, but I think if you could do both, that would be awesome.
I'd say yes on both of those.
And then how important is the Washington Street pedestrian
I
connection?
mean, it's ideal, but
Well, we put it in the action plan, we
Yep.
create the steps
Yeah.
to
It's
to
also
have
a
that
block.
conversation.
it's a block to walk around it.
Yeah, but.
Obviously, I want it, but it may not be possible.
It's not do or die.
All right.
I'd also central garbage. I don't think we need every one of those places to have their own garbage.
Okay.
We get a lot of garbage on the street in terms of.
Yep.
Individual bins.
Yeah, I think we'll address that in the action plan in terms of what's the best strategy for that. We're talking to Republic and others.
For that site A, that green space, public plaza area, somewhat kid friendly, like the other public spaces down Pine. I mean, the main people that are in
Mhm.
Old Town after school is kids.
Yeah.
And have another space for them with complimentary whatever down there, I think would be ideal.
And an enhanced crosswalks,
I love those
and
crosswalks,
just, boom, you're here, so slow down and respect all of us.
especially so close to the schools.
We have 4 schools in walking range.
Yep. I think
Yeah,
it's
and
great.
people biking down Sherwood Boulevard and it's wrapped, so.
And, people will use school property for parking at nights and weekends. Until they, have some sort of enforcement, but doubt they'll do that anytime soon.
How much more do you have? 'Cause we-
That's it.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
we're gonna try and vet through some of these action items you see here as bullets, but I just wanted to get a sense of where you stood, things like no absolute no-goes, or some things that we can continue to learn more about and bring something to you.
But yeah, I think you're on the right track.
Okay, thank you. Great. Awesome, super.
Any last questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great work.
No.
Easier around than
Thank you.
last one.
Done. Wow. I'm out of here. Thank you.
That's because we've
Great
worked
stuff.
great committees, with all the hard work, and we just go. I was actually expecting a little bit of pushback. I found this very intriguing. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, I can see why people say it's gonna change.
Yeah, it was really, it's a really interesting conversation.
Who was the last?
The last one that I was at was the committee, that I don't even know what they were called. Copy.
All right, well, for those listening, we just adjourned our work session. We'll have our regular council meeting at 7, but now we're moving to the community enhancement program meeting, which it looks like the same people with Councilor Garrett from Metro here, but it's actually technically a different committee board. So we have a different agenda for it. So, David, you want to do roll call?
Yes, Mayor Rosner. Here. Council President Young.
Here.
Keith Mays. Renee Browse.
Here.
Dan Stankey.
Here.
Doug Scott.
Here.
Taylor Giles.
Here.
And Metro Councilor Garrett Rosenthal.
Here.
All right. We jump in?
We want to approve the minutes from.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 18th.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. Before we jump into the grants, talked to a couple of you about it. Two specifically, but I want to ask the rest of the council if this is okay. We have one item on the list that's for the YMCA, and Renee has a conflict because she teaches a class at the YMCA. So what we thought we could do, so Renee can be at least a part of the conversation, is if we just initially just talk about the YMCA grant, vote on that separately, and then talk about the rest of the field as a separate vote, if that's okay with it. That way Renee can provide input on all the other grants,
and not the other.
I mean, I would say it's hard to vote on at the beginning without knowing, because it's contextualized with everything
vote on that
else.
one.
But we could vote on the end separately, sure. We can have the discussion separately.
So we have a discussion now.
Yeah.
Set that out.
Yeah.
And then we'll have two votes at the end.
Okay. Yeah. I'm good with that.
Is that okay, Renee?
That works for you guys.
Awesome.
Before we go into the details, I think I asked this by email, David, and I don't know, or I asked maybe you in person. Do we have any carryover from last year?
Yes, so, we're projected to have carryover about $64,000, but if you recall, we have the 20% reserve that the committee, discussed about 2 years previously. So we're currently, right now, we have a little over $100,200 is what we're estimating revenue to hand out. But built into the budget is about $63,400 in contingency, which is made up of the last 3 years of roughly 20%, reserve built.
Top of the 102.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a separate pot. We have a.
So we're taking 20% a year and setting it aside like we talked about.
Yes.
So that's the 64,000.
Yes.
So are we adding another 20% to it this year?
That is what the
That includes that, okay,
Yeah,
so this, essentially, we got 120,000 this year, give or take, and we're putting 20,000 into the contingency and we're making 100,000 available.
Yeah, so this what makes up the last, including this upcoming year, this current fiscal year and prior fiscal year, 3 years worth of 20%.
Got it, that's helpful clarity, thank you.
There's one chair down on that end, if anybody wants to sit.
I also think we can probably minimize, or not minimize, but shrink column A down considerably so we can get more of the following columns on the screen at the same time.
And the other thing I wanted to mention before we get started, we actually had more applications than this. We do have a part of our, the staff does a pre-qualification. So only the ones that kind of meet the raw qualifications get rolled through. So if you're here and you don't see something, that's why. There were some that were moved because one of our standard is we'll do 2 years in a row. And we'll take a break and then do another 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think you had some in, so I thought you might be looking at that going.
See that there?
Yeah, and that's why, because that's kind of how the program rolls, but you got some great ones the last 2 years, so. But I just wanted to address that in case anyone was looking up there and noticed something was missing. So, and I apologize that we didn't tell you that.
So I don't need to stay here.
No, you got your evening back.
That would be kind of fun. I enjoy these meetings.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to stay, but, and I apologize, we didn't let you know about that, so. All right, awesome. So anyway, with that.
What I'm noticing is that all of you have permission to access that Excel file, whereas I did not.
I spent my information in.
Why wouldn't let me download it? I had to do it my own.
City account.
Yeah.
All right, I thought I gotten fired.
365.
You want me to add your numbers in and then we can all discuss it?
Yeah, we can. Let's see, I didn't do that in order. Let's see, Summer Jazz, I put 2,000.
Can we start with YMCA too, before we get?
Oh,
I think you just wanted to populate the spreadsheet first.
yeah, YMCA, I actually put 0.
Let's go down your whole list.
Okay.
So line C for 0.
Yep. The Sherwood use stuff, so I put the full on the cheer mat replacements. And a full on the space cost reduction initiative, and then nothing on everything else. So 0.
Oh, 0.
On that, and 0 on that, and 0 on that, and then full on that. Then 0 on that. I put 0 on that. I feel like we did a big one for them last year. 0 on that. 0 on that. Going. Hey. I put 15,000 on that, but. And then I put 10,000 on that, and I put 5,000 on that. And then I did 0 on that. And Zero on that. What's that? Wildlife, 10,000 on that. 21, I did a full amount on that. And then I did 0 on that. And 18,000 on that.
So we're gonna start with the YMCA.
Yeah, and we're just gonna talk about the YMCA. For at least for now.
So we had just two who funded it,
Yeah.
so we have the majority who didn't.
Yeah.
Kind of the rule of thumb we took, isn't it?
I guess, if Mr. Rosenthal wants to advocate for it, I guess, or make a comment.
I can't advocate very specifically because I'm not that familiar with the deals. Just a community kitchen struck me as a teaching kitchen is something that is of a general benefit to the health of the community, but I was also balancing to 102, and you say that the actual number is 120.
No, it's 102 because of that 20% reserve policy.
Because of the, okay, I thought
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
I thought it should be.
we have $100,200 to give out is what we're estimating.
Okay.
And you have to understand, all these are estimates too, because we're giving out the money before the money comes in the door.
Right.
So there's always a risk there.
So when I looked at that. Last, I just thought of the senior center and the kitchen that we have there and the hours of the week that it's not utilized and the opportunity could be to use that. Certainly with initially if they're have plans versus something.
I mean, for me, it was pretty considerable expense, the it's over a third of the overall budget. Also, I looked at. We have to have a conversation at some point in the near future around the future of. That building, the ownership of it, how it's operated, who operates it, and so this feels like, do we really want to invest money in something that we don't have a clear plan for beyond 3 years from now? And that made it an easy no for me, those two things.
The no for me was same lines, and we may have to put a roof on soon, and that's not as much fun as a community kitchen, but still a lot of money.
Well, different pot of money, but point taken.
Yeah.
David, just so that for those watching and those in attendance, all of the requests added up to how much?
Well, requests added up to little over $373,000. It's the most I've seen since.
So 3.7 times more than the money available.
Yeah.
Yeah, which kudos
Made it very
to all the
difficult.
marketing that's.
It's great the message got out there.
This has got out there.
They sure made it a lot difficult though.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we only had two a few years ago.
Okay, so should we finish getting on the discussion on the rest then?
Well, so on the YMCA, it looks like I'm seeing a consensus on a no on that one.
At least for now, unless something drastically changes through the rest of the.
Do you still want to wait till the end to vote on that?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think
Okay, all right. All right, so we will not be talking about the YMCA and hey, welcome back.
so.
Start at the top.
Yeah, to start to go down, the first one is the Sherwood High School Band Booster Club, Sherwood Summer Jazz. Looks like,
1, 2, 3, 4 funded it fully.
yeah, four funded it fully, two others, little bit lesser amount. The average, this includes the zeros, is $2,700.
So I went back and forth on this one. I think I've sent 4 versions of my list in and it was on 2 of them and not on 2 of them. I also was operating under, I didn't realize the 20% contingency was already taken out, so I was
Same.
targeting.
You're talking
75 to
80.
80 grand, so I'm happy to add the full amount back in on my number.
I did the same thing. It's my account.
They've never requested before, did they? Or have they?
No, but,
So I think with that, that's the
We have-
majority of the full, yeah.
In my thoughts on that one, it does benefit a lot of kids, so it has wide impact in the community.
A lot of bang for buck too, $4,000, you know.
This one definitely looks like majority funded. I think of the whole safety issue was for me, things that were for safety.
If you don't mind, I'm not affiliated with this organization anymore. I was 10 years ago. I then owned a cheer gym that was not associated with this organization, but so I have knowledge in the industry. I know they've had the mats that they have for like probably 20 years. They last a long time. They've gotten more than their lifespan use out of them. These will last for, 15 plus years. And I also look at, if you look down, you can see I funded the first two and not the others because, as you all know, from 7 years of doing this now, one-time expenses, capital outlay versus operational. The first two items to me are both safety issues, so helmet safety training. This is a new program. There's more concussions per capita in cheer than any other sport, including football. Yeah. My daughters have had cheer concussions falling from the sky.
I'd be okay.
So to me, this is a new program. This isn't something we've ever done in cheer before, having helmets. So it seemed like $700. Geez, why not?
Yeah, you can put the full amount. My only hesitation on all of the cheer ones, obviously they were asking for a lot of money, and maybe you know this, I didn't know how many kids that impacted.
They have over 100 kids in their program every year, and they do all the way from third grade through eighth. They have a competition team and sideline teams. Maybe more than 100. It was 100 a long time ago. It might be 200 now.
Okay.
Like any other sport, right? There's a lot of kids rolling through that program every year.
Yeah, I just didn't know, I was looking a lot of the bang for the buck, right, where I was trying to weigh and say, well, how many citizens does this impact? And so that's why I was a little cautious on and plus because they asked for so much.
Well, is there anyone here from Sherwood Youth Cheerleading that wants to pitch? And for that matter, the high school band booster club. Okay, well, there's a lot of people here and I'm excited, so if you have something to say, please let us know.
And I'll just have to say that, I don't have a specific knowledge of the safety issues with the existing mats, and I don't know how many people are involved, so because I don't have a great deal of familiarity with the Sherwood.
It's tough for you when you have to do it.
Right.
So, and the other point is, I mean, they asked for a lot of different things, and so I did include them in the creative learning routine, because I thought, well, they deserve some support through the community, because they obviously benefit the community, but it was hard to choose. You could move my 5,000 up to the 3,958. It was hard for me to choose which one was going to be the most.
Your 5,000 could fund the
that's
safety and the safety.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just touch on the other four, for my knowledge and experience, I can't say with 100% certainty I'm accurate here. I think I'm probably 98% accurate. Uniforms are expensive like every other sport. So I think the plan here is they wanted to have like a collection of uniforms that they would loan out year after year. They used to have this a long time ago. They outdated and got, old and wore out. It's, so I think that's the intent there. Stunt training and creative learning and routine development. These are basically you're paying professionals to train you and to give you choreography and routine development. These are like annual costs. You'll have to have these things every year. So to me, that's why I'm looking like they're gonna have to figure out a way to fund these things like they have been every year for the last however long they've been in existence. They're gonna have to continue to. Operational costs, and then same thing with. These are not events.
I mean, these are
Activities.
activities that parents want, or kids want to be involved in, and like everything,
Yeah.
pay for our kids.
It's just like, this is like paying for practice, basically.
Yeah.
Their practice is expensive because they have to go to a cheer gym, they have to rent space, they have to pay instructors. It is expensive, but it's like any other sport.
Yeah. All right.
So one, full amount for those two, and then it looks like we have zeros.
Yeah, my only, how many did we get on the space cost reduction initiative? It was only two, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Did you wanna it's up to you.
No, I'm fine with zero. I was mainly trying to address the issue you said is it's expensive. If there's some kids that parents can't afford it, maybe that would help
Yeah,
to.
that was my
Set
thought.
off
I'd like
some
the
of that.
third, like then.
I know they used to have scholarship programs, they might still.
Most,
I'd be able
most
to
of it.
reach them.
Do you hear that, David?
You can
You
remove
can
mine.
remove the two items,
These ones.
Renee and.
Yeah, although I know it matters to.
I know, yeah, they should keep that, it probably doesn't, but. All right, where are we at? This,
Looks like we only have one for the hitting bar cage replacement.
this one's tough. This is Sherwood High School baseball is asking us to
Yeah, with
basically
fund
update
high school
another
facilities.
public entity's facilities.
well, and the bond paid for this, but they did it incorrectly. They didn't consult the baseball or softball teams. And so it's frustrating hearing about this now that it needs to be replaced. It's only been there a few years.
And I feel for teams for sure, but.
Right, and so like, I'd love to help them, but it also, it doesn't feel like this money is necessarily, should be for that. It should be like the school district's money to pay for the school district's sport facility, but.
Is there anyone here from Sherwood baseball?
Yeah, I'm not tied to it, so you can take mine away.
Oh,
It's more.
I'm just one of the, from my standpoint, looking at this from sort of as an outsider, sort of like, I look at some of these and said, well, how does this compare to benefit the community compared to other things? If we had if we had $370,000, I would have said, sure.
Yeah.
But you have to, there's an inherent trade-off as well.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Put my 10,000 to the next one though, the rec baseball play and safety equipment.
down here,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, my reason I didn't fund that was it felt like we did a very sizable one last year. In fact, I think we had that on the, when we did all of the backstops of
I just,
signage and
I
so,
just,
Yeah, we funded about
yeah,
48,000 last year.
yeah, and so that.
I took their big list and took out the things that were asset improvements, like the bleachers, the fencing, and funded the things that benefited the program itself, like the
Interesting. I did the opposite.
helmets, the pitching,
that was what I have a very precise number for the same reason. I added up first aid, catcher's equipment, tools, et cetera, and came up with that number. And I'm not interested in funding high school
We
facilities.
Well, that's.
tell them what they can and can't use it.
That was a question I was gonna have, is if they listed specific items in their application and we give them funding, can we say, I mean, they can always move money around, but they're probably not gonna have the money to do everything. Could we say we're funding this part of your application, not this part?
Yeah.
This specific, so, cause they have to report back what they did. So if we said the money's for these 5 things, they have to show that they did those 5 things.
I'd be curious, because Dan said you thought about the opposite.
Yeah, in that the bleachers would be a public entity, and so if we paid for that, like the entire community would use that at any time. Whereas sports equipment would, I mean, it would be for the baseball players, but only for the baseball players. Same with the netting over the, spectator area, like more of a safety thing, that the nets are deteriorating, unfortunately. And I do think the school board or the school district should replace those because they are the ones. who
That
own them.
was to that same point again, this is another public entity that should be taking care of their own.
But that is,
Silly.
that's where I went with that.
And renting out fields that have bleachers, they'll be able.
Okay, can we come back to
So-
that one?
So you wanna come back to that one?
Or Keith has something to say.
I mean, I would certainly increase my number from the 70, whatever, 100 to 10 grand or so, and happy to have more conversations. Folks will have more conversations.
How many people are in?
Can you highlight
Maybe-
that one,
maybe
go
a-
back to or
Dan,
something?
roughly, you know roughly how many kids are that every?
Hundreds, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's-
500.
It's T-ball through 8th grade, yeah.
We'll come back to that, and we're gonna come back to the why, right? Or
That'll be a separate conversation.
separate, yeah. All right, cruising. So it looks like we have 4 at the full amount and 2 under the full amount.
Where was I? Oh, I gave it a full, okay.
I chose to not fund that one because feels like all of those were operational, like none of it was big.
That was the reason why I didn't as well. That's my feeling on that is that sponsorships would be to support the items that were requested.
Yeah.
I chose to
In any kind.
fully fund it because, you know, there's a related conversation we haven't had yet as council around TLT prioritization and which we weren't able to have this year, and obviously we have some budget headwinds this year, so for me, this was placement until we can get to next year and have that conversation. To keep our chamber healthy.
That was the same reason I funded it, cause I'm not in favor of the TLT funding the road or the chamber at the current time, and so I thought this is a way to help them out in lieu of that. So that was, otherwise I would generally be against, as you know, funding operation as well, so.
Yeah, I chose to fund it fully as well as a trade-off of what last year we were able to fund out of our budget, which we aren't this year. So whether this is for operational or, I mean, the money that we funded them with last year was also for operations, for what they need for. So.
Well, and that's where I would be more in favor of the TLT dollars going towards this as a tourist event for the city. It makes more sense to
We
me.
haven't been able, and we're not
Yeah.
gonna have in this budget cycle, so.
Does anybody know how many people attended last year? Yeah.
Roughly 10,000.
Roughly 10,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's a,
Pretty sunny this year.
Yeah.
21-day forecast.
I've supported this fully this year, you know, if we got a request next year, I wouldn't be supported by current mindset, look at other things.
I want to.
I would be more supportive if we moved some other money from one of the other ones. I just, ran out of money. Right. But I realize it's a thing that Sherwood likes, and it's a very popular event.
And you add the two partials, that's 5, that would be a majority. If we look at it that way, but.
Yeah, at what amount though, is the,
Well, four,
you got half of fully funded.
So
Yeah.
let's see where we're at the end.
Yeah, plug it in for now and then we can. Obviously, we might have to shave some somewhere in the end.
Yeah, that's gonna be at least. It goes,
And
or
10
two
cents.
go around. Yeah,
That's
About 10 cents.
I was wondering about
Oh.
I'm happy to add 10,000 to my row on this CASA one if we're moving on. I originally, again, didn't think we had the full 100 to use. Also, I put a comment in that we could fund this out of the, our regular general fund budget like we do the other center, but we're not going to. So I'd rather just County Justice Center, thank you.
And on the CASA, yeah.
So,
No.
I definitely want to add that back in.
Where are you all from? We haven't had anybody talk.
We'll get to it.
Okay, all right.
So we have 5 committee members saying the full amount, 10,000, so I just plugged the 10,000 in. All right, the next one looks like the school to farm agricultural study, year 7.
Yeah, I've not liked it for 6 years and I don't like it for a 7th.
You got half the committee, different figures, averaging $5,300.
Do you remember what their
Some of them had minimums.
amount that they could do with?
Yeah.
This was expanding the services, if I remember correctly.
It was.
there was an
and
amount
It's like
that-
half of the amount, because they would cut out 2 of the schools then.
They're asking for 30,000?
Which
Yeah.
I would support, I just
Yeah.
ran out of funds.
That's kind of where I was at.
I must admit, I'm always prejudiced in favor of school to farm programs,
It's gonna be more and more critical.
Doesn't belong there.
especially up in this area.
You want me to put the average in and we revisit it? Yeah, that, okay.
I've always been against this just because it's operational in nature. It's like every year they come back, every year they're eligible, they come back, ask for us to fund the program.
They said
I know, because they weren't eligible.
grant, a lot of project, 14,596.
Yeah.
Rotary Club, for wine festival.
It's like that amount.
Already at 100.
Wait, where did you come up with the 5?
Yeah.
I took the average and we're gonna come back and revisit it to see how much we've given out. Or awarded.
It's like that's 2,500.
I supported the wine festival because you guys added some land that you want to make as a wine culture, part of the city.
Gateway to Wine
I
Country.
can hardly say no.
Yeah, my only thought on that was, that it, you know, it feels like we've got a lot of wine walks and different wine, is this
It was
the
heavily
same
attended
as?
this year. Very heavily attended.
Okay.
It's
just-
in the hospitality, it's in the area that we want to have a hospitality zone, so that's where it's going to be held.
But so what's the one we do downtown that's,
Main Street.
That's the Main Street Sherwood Wine Walk.
okay,
Said there used to be a wine festival downtown. This is that wine festival.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been going since pre-COVID.
All right. I'm fine with it, I was thinking.
I'd like to say, talk on the Elks, even though none of us put money there, because I was unclear. I can even find it in our,
And we have someone here, so.
I know, that's why, I saw all kinds of Elks people and I said they can answer my question.
We're actually here representing the person that applied for the grant, so hopefully we can answer your question.
Okay, my question was, you were asking for 50,000.
We'll take a bone.
It said, I thought the whole project was 50,000 and then in the,
I was trying to understand.
in the app, yeah. In the application, it said that they were gonna use 25 from the general fund and then fundraising, events and donation, 25 to 45. So if you're having 25 from the general fund, do you really need 50 from us or 25 and 25 equals 50?
I suspect they would take any amount, would help the cause.
You are absolutely right. We
Okay.
would be happy with anything. We went in for the high number and
Yeah.
happy.
Okay,
So is 50,000 the full cost of the project?
Answer that.
The full cost is 74, 75.
okay, so if you have 25 from the general fund, you're asking for the other 50, either you get some from us and fundraise some other way or something.
Fundraise and we're trying to get some help, yeah.
Gotcha.
And is that the main floor?
It's a whole.
Yeah, we lost.
All the interior.
Got ruined by water when they were doing the Oh, is that what happened?
We have to do a couple of variations of things because of the age of the building, and old and all that stuff, abatements, yeah, and so, yeah.
So, can I ask a generalized question, and excuse my ignorance? What does the Elks do and like, how do they serve the community?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too.
I can answer that question. I'm one of the trustees. We support the community in numerous ways. We strongly support our vets. We have regular vet cafe where our vets are invited to come in and we treat them to free meals. We have a vet's needs closet that is stocked with all kinds of materials for some of those that are homeless, others that are moving from homelessness. We provide them what we call home boxes that provides them dishes and pots and pans and cleaning things, things that when you're coming from homelessness, you don't have. We support them in just financially. Sometimes they can't make their rent. We also do a lot of scholarships within the community. We are building houses, the Sherwood High School grad parties, baseball teams. All of those the school events, we provide the space for them to have their fundraisers. So they come in and they have their fundraisers. We provide the space for them to do that. We do animal. This last year, we serviced over 200 families, underserved families with toys and food at Christmas time.
What was this one? You said sponsorship of Sherwood High School students in working on industrial vocational art projects to develop life skills and practical experience. What is that?
I wish I could answer that.
Oh,
That too.
I mean, that sounds amazing, whatever that is, yeah.
I am not privy to that.
Okay.
We also open up to the community. We have like 120 people that come once a week to come play bingo, which, provides things for our
Entertainment.
people to do. We have over 800 members, but with those members, many of their spouses hold spouse cards. So we have a high number of people here in Sherwood.
Unless you have places for people, members, I guess you have to be a member of the L to camp.
We support Meadowwood Camp, which is for autistic children. We support the Hoop Shoot, which is grade school and teens shooting, basketball shooting and winning scholarship money. We do Americanism essays where ages 4th, 5th, and 6th graders write. This year they wrote about what patriotism means to them. They are awarded prizes based on that. We are very involved with the KCI Institute. We have funded that dramatically, which and families that can't afford it take care of it.
Right. I'd like to, yeah, I'd say part of our discussion last year when we were talking about the American Legion is being a membership type place.
This is very helpful.
But learning how much they do out community helped us make those decisions.
Can we flag that one to come back to as well?
Part of the challenge on that one is, let's say that there's a discussion to wanna put something in there, there is a clock to spend it. So if we gave you, let's say, $10,000, are you gonna be able to spend it?
By next June 30th.
Yes. Is that correct? Neil?
Yes, we've gotten bids for, we're gonna do either polished concrete. The membership will have to vote on it, but it'd be polished concrete or LVP.
I think just keep in mind that if the project's not done by next June 30th, you'd have to give the money back. So
Yeah.
our share.
We're in hopes to get it done within the next 60 days.
Okay, great.
I moved some money around on mine because I apologize. I didn't catch the part where you'd lost the floor in that room.
Yeah, I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I'm a member who doesn't get out there enough, but
Okay.
you guys do amazing work for the community. So,
What's the condition of the current floor? Not having seen it.
We had kind of a carpet down. We had to pull it all
We had
down.
3 different floors in there and we had to pull it all up and then we put down, it's basically a rubber paint, for just for the interim and get a new floor.
It seals any.
Sure.
And everything.
So you're on an interim floor now.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically kind of a painted.
Paper barrier kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just
What
so people don't fall.
One other question, how many non-members are you able to serve or do you serve?
That's a harder number for us to come up with, you know, in terms of community events. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and?
Like
Quite a
this,
bit.
We have non-member events.
we do, like we're gonna have a large fundraiser that the community will be invited to. We'll have music program or music, live music lineup for different bands. And that's open to the community. We have, our community events are what we call membership drives.
Okay.
So that's like our bingo, we do a monthly bunko, and those are opportunities for different people to come in and it builds, but where our larger contribution is to the outside of the membership is through scholarships, through our events programs, our Camp Meadowwood and those types of things.
And of course, non-members can come with members and they're very reasonably priced.
Yeah,
I would say,
Okay.
remember, there's 5 non-members, but
Yeah.
these Thursdays, there's a group of people there. I volunteer sometimes.
Yeah. Very,
Okay.
I think we got what we needed.
Right, excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so do you need us, or is this something, this is our first rodeo here?
You can stick around for 20 minutes to find out what the
Yeah.
results are.
Yeah. That one looks like it's fully funded by what, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that one.
I'm happy to raise mine if I,
I didn't fund this one because the minimum ask, when I went into what they would fund with the minimum, it was still like trying to use the money for their fundraiser instead of like the interactive displays. I don't know why they wouldn't do the 2 interactive displays. And so like the details of these, I wish we had the people here to speak to these, unfortunately.
I've been connected with them for 20 years, so it's about, having improved, more up to date display at the visitor center. Or the feds are not gonna put any money towards, anything different or anything, refuges for probably 3 years.
If
So-
yes, what is the minimum grant amount that would allow? 7,500. And that would be,
It's just one of the screens.
that would be the Brews for Birds and the,
It's a different kind of a thing where it's the full amount, they would put it towards the displays.
Right, which
So
I wish it would have been the other way.
I had a thought, sorry, this is. I don't want to finish it.
No, that's,
So this is more structural than the specific request. I love the way Sherwood Youth Cheer did their requests. It makes it very easy. They're all like this, like line items, right? And a lot of these we get over the years, there's like in the details you get, there's really 3 requests buried in there. And we're having these conversations trying to parse out what's for what. I almost feel like if we had a policy that says like you have an individual project. If you have 2 projects, it's 2 requests. You have 3 projects, it's 3 requests, and then it makes it a lot easier to just say, okay, we're gonna fund that one, but not the other one. And we can, versus.
Get the committee vote on that at the end, and then we could make that as a requirement for the change for the future.
This is my thought, but.
I don't know how much more administrative work that causes,
So I think
but
you got majority support.
Yeah.
Full amount on that one.
I fully funded this one because it was our goal last year.
Yeah, there's 5 at the full amount.
Phase 2.
There is 4.
Yeah, that one would be a very, very, also a very public thing.
right, community enhancing.
Yeah.
So we have
Nice or.
half the committee on the very last one. Funding, a few funding all, some funding less, average 6,700.
I had questions on, and Leslie asked them if she could figure out the answers, but I didn't get back with her, but maybe Taylor.
Taylor had the.
Some of your problems. And like, what problem? Oh,
No, but we have some board members too.
oh, I thought I heard they were getting a grant for this.
They have received some money. They have $10,000.
$10,000 from the Keene Family Fund. The pods are gonna be about 28 to 30,000
Okay.
depending on tariffs.
Okay, so that's what I was confused. I thought that they had a grant, so. it just
They got
wasn't
enough
full-
money to
it
start the
wasn't up
project.
there. So,
Yeah.
okay, I gotcha. Okay.
I
I just,
I think there's a lot of places for people to meet. I don't think we need to take up library space. For a free meeting space. But that's one man's thing.
Is the grant we received only, it can only be used for that?
That's all we're asking for.
No, I meant you mentioned you've received money from another source.
Yes,
Can that?
no, that is unrestricted,
That's unrestricted.
so.
So I funded it. I think it'd be helpful. The library is actually one of the true places where it's open to all. I mean, anybody can go to the the library. There's no restrictions to that.
My 11 down to that one. I'd rather do that than the route. Oh, yeah. And Taylor had to go to another meeting, but he wanted me to tell everybody he would really like to see the box. Promised him and told that.
So then we only have
Split on both of these. Yeah, you're right. We only have 3 on that one now.
Yeah, now we only have 3. So here. Kind of all over the board, be trying to come up with a consensus on the amount where we go with the average at
I
81.
mean, we still also have nothing on JBO. And we haven't talked about the Y and then the floor repair thing.
Can I did clarify a little bit about the vocational project. We worked with the high school. Their architectural design, they did some design work for us, and as we worked collaboratively, also I mentioned that we do every, I think it's 6 weeks, the American Red Cross Blood Drive, like that our vocation.
Right.
Okay, awesome.
Just going back to JBO, I feel like as we got further down the list, we started plugging in the average for everything else, and we didn't do that for JBO, so it feels like we're being a little unfair.
That's a good point.
I'd give it to the Elks personally, versus either of the last two. So you can move my 11 grand from vinyl wrap to the Elks.
Looks like
Next
teaching-
call over.
There are only two of us supporting the teaching kitchen. Sounds like that's not a really high support item, so probably those monies should be allocated someplace else that didn't receive a lot of support.
Yeah, we didn't allocate any for that one already.
I mean, here though, we have, 5 committee members give some money for the pods. For the floor replacement, we have 2.
Well, cause I could move some money down from somewhere, if like my 25 on JBO. If you're only gonna give 12, then put my 12.5 down under on the
I
line.
moved my 20 from the community test kitchen down to either one.
Okay.
Of course, that screws up the averages then, doesn't it?
Well, we can change, but then we
It's
can
already
just
plugged
change
in
the, we
Yeah.
can change column D to match the average, see where we're at.
I have moved my 11 grand from the wrap to, the Elks floor.
Great minds. Alright, so now we have an average on,
Moved my 10 from the community test kitchen down to the modular and 10 to the floor.
You're 20.
You're 20.
20,
Yeah.
yeah, 10
You'll
each.
do that, and 10 on the floor. And 10 on the modular.
You want 10 more here, so
Yeah.
total 14?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now where are we at on averages?
we still need to plug something into that column.
So do you want me to switch now the JBO to the average, the 10?
I think it's a good place to start on some of those ones that have. I just think we need to be consistent, because in some cases, if we had 4. Like a 4 or 5 majority, we put the full fund, even if we didn't put the average. On other ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's hard to know, looking at the individual request, we'll need to double check like the minimum amount. Cause if it's below that minimum
Well, that means,
ask,
yeah.
are we still gonna fund?
Oh, right. Oh, we used to have a second column on the spreadsheet that told
Oh,
us
the
what the
minimum
minimum
amount,
ask, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly the first 3 are not an issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you know what one was, the
baseball will.
holiday decorations, we could
That
do
was
Yeah.
10,000, I think.
Well, right now we're at full fund, so it doesn't matter. Unless we wanted to change it. I mean, we're over, we're 5 people voting for full fund, so.
I can make that work if that's the amount. I'll just
Yeah, I mean,
charge less than our allocated cost.
The 106 can work, that's what people wanna do. Um,
Do we need to have a vote on the teaching kitchen thing, or is it we've kind of self-resolved that, Tim? Without any here.
We'll finish this. I think I know where that vote's going.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, that's fine,
Yeah.
if you need it from a parliamentary procedure standpoint.
can you scroll up? With the top 3 are fully funded because those are the majority, way over, okay.
Yeah, okay.
And this is totally committee decision. I'm not trying to sway either way. You do have that contingency too for larger capital projects, but I don't know if any of these qualify for mines for anything to that degree.
Well, that's what the 60,000
I mean-
is for, not for me.
I would love to make the Elks like at least 10, but that's just me.
What happens if you take the money that I had, before I asked or talked to Sebastian, I had scored. So if you removed the money that I had for that and you moved it down to Elks, what does that do to the average?
Oh, remove this?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you got 36, stay with there.
We better make sure we got a total column on everybody
Yeah.
that's not over
Well,
the
that's the
limit.
thing, right, yeah, the end of the day, it's the total amount on the.
That we don't want somebody's individual
will
column
help
equaling 200,000.
To like. Weigh it differently, yeah.
We're fine.
That brings up.
8,000, almost 9,000 from contingency.
Yeah, it's too much for me, I'm not,
What
I'm not in
happens?
favor of
Let's
that.
use the average for the other.
What about the holiday?
Craig, can we,
What if we only do
Do
50,000
we have
on the
the-
holiday?
It's just the number of fixtures you buy, so you can pick any number for the holiday lights.
It's just the,
Right now, we have
Wow.
5 people.
I think
We
it
have
was
5
maybe gonna
people
even
for
be
full
more,
time.
but we're like, let's just.
What
be
if-
reasonable.
The minimum request.
What if we took 5,000 off the holiday?
Yeah.
Craig says we make that work.
Oh, yeah.
Use the average of 15.
Yeah.
One,
Or, well,
I'm
Yeah,
not in
just take-
favor of that.
just take 5 off that and into the hotels.
Oh, so we're not lowering them up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then.
Hit enter,
There's
now
also-
you're, now
There we
you're
go.
pretty much
Now we're-
the number.
now we're- yeah, okay.
So the modular is getting half of the amount.
Yeah.
The town square is getting 3/4. Wildlife refuge gets the whole amount.
What happens if the modular meeting pod only gets half, or will they come up with the other 10 grand somewhere else?
Yes, we were waiting to see what was gonna happen tonight. And we're gonna start seriously, lot more fundraising. We've been doing this a little bit piecemeal, but once we get a definite.
Do you know what else you need?
We know what we're shooting for. We've got a few people we're gonna be talking to. And we anticipated not having a problem funding it all by the end of the year,
Thank you.
if not sooner. Awesome. Okay.
So do we wanna, so you have to abstain, are we ready to vote?
Well, we still only have 4 out of 8 who even wanted to support farm to table at all, which is only half. It's not a majority. So I'm curious why, how that one's getting funded at all.
It's not a majority, we should make
It's
this.
half, that's it, yeah.
Which one?
Farm table.
Farm to table, I only have 4
Not
people
supporting it.
Okay.
4 out of 8.
Farm to table is farms.
Sorry.
Farm.
Sorry.
Apologies, can we add that to Elks?
I would in a heartbeat, but I don't have any money allocated on that line.
I would, well, my money wasn't on it in the first place, so.
So add the.
Or we just get closer to balance.
Right.
I'm going a little bit over.
Okay, you want me to add it here?
Also could just round the number. We could just say 17,000 or 17. I'm sure they're happy to get the extra.
I'm
Yeah, for $100
happy
so-
dance over here, so.
Started with 0, yeah.
Appreciate it.
As everyone can see, this is really.
Any
struggle.
others that only have 4? Everything else has 5 or more, right?
Yeah, looks like everything else is.
Wait, go back down.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's 5 as well.
All right, are we ready?
Is that the final?
I
I always feel unhappy after this process.
Metro to keep their money.
We really don't wanna do that. We just throw it away.
We're doing some good versus no good.
I mean, it's great that you went from having 2 people apply for money and trying to figure out what to do with it to having more people apply than you really have the money for it. I mean, it's great. You got the word out. I think that's great.
Okay.
It is awesome, so. Let's, you have to abstain, let's vote on the YMCA one first.
I make a motion that we don't fund YMCA this time.
Second. A motion and a second, all those in favor of not funding YMCA this year, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. Aye.
I make a
Opposed?
motion.
Opposed? And we have
Abstention.
abstention. All right, the motion passes, we will not fund Y. Now, we can move on unless there's any other conversation.
I make a motion to approve the slate as presented minus the Y.
Second.
All right, we have any discussion on the motion? Did you have anything?
No, just as is displayed on our screen. It was due for a total of $106,000 and change.
Where are we taking the extra from? Are we taking it from contingency or are we taking it from fees? I heard him say, I thought he had heard him say fees.
Yeah, I mean, I could take it out from administrative costs we charge, just to, there's time and effort, my
I
finance
don't know
staff.
the amount of money we're gonna get.
That's the hat right now, and everybody put in $20. No.
There you go.
All right. Do we have a preference on that?
For more.
Where it comes from?
It's coming out of that specific fund, it's not coming out of the general fund or anything like that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna amend my motion.
Thank you. That's just not to have.
I am going to make a motion that we approve the slate minus the Y of $106,048.95, and any additional that goes over what we receive comes out of the administrative fund.
I'll second that. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. And opposed?
No, I'll let you finish this and then I got
Oh, any abstentions? Motion passes without a slate.
And then a policy change for next year's applications, that they need to apply an application for each individual project versus. I put mine,
They can do whatever they want, but it's suggested that maybe if there are multiple projects, they break it up into.
Some logical, like JBO's example, right? Like. The equipment is one project.
Sure, to bundle.
But like the equipment is a project and then backstops is a clear second project to me. Like I thought the cheer stuff is a good example.
Maybe not a policy.
More of a like an encouragement. So if we get an application in, maybe
we get
it looks like you should have split this up. Staff discretion.
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We're adjourned.
Awesome.
Library.
Great.
Thank you.
Because it's very.
On behalf of.